Thank you for joining to this webinar and today to discuss what's happening in the agri-food tech ecosystem and state of the trends. Here I am, Matthieu with Jérémie.
Hello.
So today we will introduce what's happening in terms of trend in the ecosystem, in terms of medium long-term trend shaping the future of food, and then have a discussion about the perspectives and what could happen in 2026 and beyond. And also then we'll answer your questions. Should be we can start with that, and just initially we'll just introduce ourselves and tell you a bit more about DigitalFoodLab. So we've been working in this space for the past 15 years now. Initially as entrepreneurs. So we created together with Jérémie a startup in France that we developed from 2010 to 2017 that we then sold to a health company and then created DigitalFoodLab together again. And we've been doing that for the past 8 years. Quite simply, DigitalFoodLab is a consultancy, and we work with mostly large agri-food companies on two main streams. One is exploration, so helping large agri-food companies identify where they should put their attention and what's happening in terms of innovation that is relevant to them. And then strategy. So once you have the information about what's important and what's relevant, once you know what you should put on your radar, what should you do about it? As I've said, our focus is on agri-food tech. So from animal feed to new food products to new innovation around retail, notably delivery, everything related to the consumer and notably its health. And when we talk about agri-food tech, it's obviously often to talk about startups, but not only startups. It's everything that has a relationship with upstream innovation, we should say, with research, and downstream what's happening inside large agri-food companies. So we look at all these types of innovation on the agri-food supply chain from ag to feed to food, and obviously on a global approach, because it's super important to know what's happening locally, but also what's happening elsewhere in the globe to have a good understanding about what's happening. Before starting, just a quick word. If you're interested to learn more, and also if you would like internally to diffuse this kind of information about what we are talking about the trends and which one are specifically relevant to your company, we do a lot of bespoke workshops and presentations to our clients. So is that something that could be interesting to you? Let us know and we can have a discussion about that. But we now will start our presentation and our theme of today on what's happening on the state of the innovation ecosystem and then the trends. So first part, because you are quite a lot to have joined today, and I'm quite a new faces. So maybe some of you are not always aware with what we are talking about when we talk about food tech. So it may be useful just to reframe what we're talking about. So first, let's come back to the origin. Why are we talking about food tech, or why are we talking about innovation in food? So why does food need something like a radical change and not just an evolution? Very basically, food is faced to and with multiple challenges. Some of them are really well known, some of them are a bit less well understood. So we broadly map 5 big challenges which are facing the agri-food industry, the agri-food supply chain. So number one is around climate, quite well known. So food has an impact on climate. Again, something that is more and more understood, but a fourth, 26% of all global emissions can be related to agri-food, so a huge proportion. And that's the part that is maybe a bit less well understood. The current evolution of climate, say new climate shocks, warming, etc., has an impact and already has an impact on food. And the most recent examples was around climate shocks in the southern hemisphere, and notably on cocoa prices, coffee prices in the past couple of years. So if you've been, I don't know, in a cave, you may have not heard about it, but price of cocoa just skyrocketed and now are just 2 years afterwards going back to normal. So it's something that is quite interesting to observe. And these kind of shocks will just happen again and again. Obviously, there are other challenges related to health and aging population. We are at a peak population in many developed countries, and we will reach a peak population globally in the next decades. So for food companies, it creates a challenge to rethink how they grow, not just by targeting more population. They need to target consumers with more products and eventually more services. And on the other hand, we have all the relationship between food and health, which is kind of complicated, to put it mildly. And finally, last challenge that I want to talk about is the challenge around geopolitics. We have the issues around the war in Ukraine, but also globally a trend of protectionism where different countries want to be more reliant on their own source of feed and food, and that is creating huge kind of tensions, and something that will only increase and create these kind of tensions, new problems and challenges for the food industry. So basically, we are the condition of a perfect storm for the food industry, which has grown in the past 50 years on this idea of more volume, more people to feed, etc., etc. And now we arrive to a shift in paradigm where we need to grow in terms of new value proposition, new services. So you have this in one hand, and in the other hand, you have the innovation ecosystem, which in itself is quite telling that innovation is not happening inside large agri-food companies, but oftentimes externally. So our goal here is to match the two and to find which areas of the innovation ecosystem are relevant for each agri-food company and how to leverage innovation. But indeed, if we talk about innovation, we talk a lot about startups, and the main metric to have an idea of how well the innovation ecosystem is doing is funding. And as you can see on the screen, we have now data for what has happened in 2025. We are still at quite low levels in terms of funding globally. So investment in agri-food tech startups, it rose steadily, then huge excitement around COVID, and then big decrease. And now we are at this medium-low plateau of funding around 12, 13 billion per year, which is half empty, quite low, half full. At least it has stopped to decline. So we are at this level right now. So it's not perfect situation to move forward. In our position, in our view, we are very much convinced that we are a bit more on the half full glass than half empty. First, it's maybe trivial to say it like that, but in terms of funding, it could be much worse. If you just look at past crises, past funding crunches, it was much worse. Now we just have lost 80% of funding compared to 2021, but it's only 30-40% compared to pre-COVID. So it's not that bad. And it's the same situation as in any other tech ecosystem that is not related to artificial intelligence. So basically now investors are just looking at everything AI related and don't really care about anything else. So it could be much worse. Number two, corporates are acting as a buffer, so through partnerships, and we'll talk a lot about that later on. They are in many ways replacing funding that was coming from investors, and through partnerships, commercial deals, they are replacing money that was not always well spent. Third, the ecosystem is much cleaner in many ways and much mature than it was a few years ago. Many technologies have moved forward. Many of the startups that have failed and gone bankrupt were not the good players. So when we look at what's inside the agri-food tech ecosystem right now, we're quite happy with what we see. And finally, and that will be our theme today, we are very convinced that 2026 will be a pivotal moment, a pivotal year, because we have so many partnerships, as we said, that have been launched between corporations and startups. And now we need to see results. So will this partnership deliver results? Yes, yeah, they will deliver results. We'll move forward. Many of the technologies will get implemented and go to scale up and commercialization. No, they don't deliver any kind of result. We'll be in kind of a very bad situation. And maybe at the end of the day, okay, food tech will just be new brands and some agriculture innovation, and all the exciting stuff around proteins, new ingredients, healthy aging will be over. So that's what we'll be talking now. Um, Before moving forward, if you have any questions, areas that you'd like us to discuss during the Q&A session, you can ask question in the Q&A tool in Zoom that you should have in the bottom of the screen. So that's a very good way for us to address your questions at the end of the session. So now I would like to share with you the main findings of the report and what we basically want to highlight in terms of trends that will shape tomorrow's food. First, note of caution about what we are talking about. What is a trend? First, what are we looking at? I like this graph that you have on the right. Basically, the idea is what we're talking about is what we observe. There is a set of innovation that is required where we would need innovation. So that's when a corporation asks us, is there any kind of innovation there? And there is this set of innovation where actually there are players doing stuff. And what we're looking at is the space of there are players doing stuff. So you can have either the sweet spot when the two met, you can have useless innovation, so players doing innovation that has not yet found its need, and you can have opportunities, so areas where we would need innovation, but nobody is doing anything around it. So it's really important to understand that we look at this space of where innovation is happening and not where we would like to see it happen. Then number two, we will display our trend curve, where we put all the trends and all the innovations that are currently identifiable in the agri-food tech ecosystem. Basically, a trend follows this kind of pattern. It arrives, so it emerged from the lab. 1, 2, 3 startups are trying. Entrepreneurs are moving out of the lab and entrepreneuring and creating startups around an idea. Then, after some time, more entrepreneurs, people get excited, more funding. There is a hype that is getting created. Everybody is slightly excited about it, but we normally quite fast discover that normally both the business model and the technology are not working. It can be just one of the two, but it's often both. And the same people that were super excited are now saying that they never believed into in this area. Many of the startups fail and go bankrupt. That's this phase of disillusion, which can be quite long. And then after some time, players that were initially focused on trying to innovate on all the supply chain are now much more specialized. To give you the example of food delivery, initially you had players cooking, creating websites, and delivering food. Then at stage 4, you just have delivery players or cloud kitchen players. So the innovation supply chain is much more streamlined. So now we found a viable business model, the technology is working, and then we are ready for disruption. And that's mainly when basically everybody knows about it, it's going mainstream, and it's disrupting finally the way business is being done. So with that in mind, all these precautions, here is what we observe in the agri-food tech ecosystem. So here is our snapshot of what's happening in agri-food right now. So a lot of things. 5 mega trends. We will cover each of them with a bit more detail. 36 different trends at different levels of maturity. If we just want to have a look at this curve, we can just have first two learnings, maybe a bit more. If we look specifically at some mega trends, first, the healthy aging space. As you can see, something new. People are getting excited now, but the trends are very, very emerging. So don't expect to see disruptive products using these healthy aging technologies just right now. Similar, if you look at the sustainable ingredients, many of the trends are in this disillusion downtrend curve that explain why so many companies are failing, and this feeling that everything is going downwards for alternative proteins. It's not just a feeling, it's basically a fact. Both of the trends are in the disillusion phase, but it doesn't mean that it's the end of the day. It just means that it's not the right time to maybe put all your bets in this basket, but also that things are probably closer to be in a good spot than they were when everybody was excited about it. Also, two rapid comments. Resilient farms, so the green spot are related to agriculture, many trends which are doing well, and also something that we observe that is not really on the curve because it's not a trend in itself, it's diffused in many of the trends. Compared to last year, people are much more reasonable around artificial intelligence, even if now I think most of the startups that raise money are AI driven. As in FoodTech, there is not very much applications of real AI. It's just we are using AI. People are much more reasonable, and there is much less excitement than there was just a year ago. Another tool that we've developed in this report for the first time this year, it's our innovation radar. So the idea is quite simple. As you can see, we have mapped the 6 megatrends and 3 levels. So are the technologies at deployment stage, pilot stage, lab stage, and it's here to give you a view of is the industry adopting the trend more and is it doing more, less than it was a year previously? So as you can see, we have a lot of green points. So contrary to the idea that it's maybe the end of food tech, etc., you have a rising engagement of the industry in many of the areas and trends that we've spotted. But we'll come back to that when we'll do deep dives on each of the mega trends. So we'll start with the first megatrend, which is around farming, which we call the resilient farming. So the idea that in the near medium future, farming needs to become more resilient, first to climate shocks, and then also to a diminishing workforce. So we can divide the different trends in 2 categories. First one, which is close to us, which is around augmenting farming, so making farming more productive, more efficient. And the second one, which is much more around sustainability, which is again in 2 ways, making farming more sustainable, less emitting, but also more sustainable in the fact that it needs to resist to climate events. As you can see, many trends, and what is quite exciting in this area is that most of them are either doing well and are rising or are a bit around the hype curve. So that's why we hear a lot nowadays about these technologies and why they are doing so well. So we'll do a quick focus on one of the trends because we don't have time here, and it's maybe not the place to comment all of them. Just one which is indeed at the top, as is hypest as it can be, which is sustainable livestock. So the idea is quite simple. On paper, as usual, cattle, cows mostly, emit a lot of methane through rumination. And the idea is how can we solve that? Stream number one, you just remove the cow of the equation and it's about alternative proteins. But can we reduce just methane emissions through technology? And here you have an ecosystem that emerged very, very fast with the support mostly of dairy players. So you have started doing masks, which capture carbon directly from the cow's nose. You have feed supplements, you have vaccines, you have inbound methane capture, you have genetic approaches to modify the gut of the cattle. So very exciting to see how fast it has moved. It's super hype. What we're looking at right now is that even if there is quite a lot of corporate enthusiasm, it doesn't translate into partnerships or not that many partnerships, not that many experimentations. So we are very much expecting a wave of consolidation in the year or years to come, notably as we are waiting for efficiency results. And as in many instances in kind of technology, some players will have good results, many won't have that good results, and there will be a sorting of all the different technologies and players, and maybe in 1 or 2 years picture will be much clearer, but also it will look much less exciting in some ways. Other key points, so very positive evolution as we've mapped on 2 areas, sustainable livestock, as we've discussed, and on farm robotics. So robotics are now getting much more used, experimented with. So it's not yet in every field, in every farm globally, but it's getting used, notably due to workforce concern, immigration regulation in North America. So it's rising, and we have high or growing doubts on 3 areas. Insects, which are not doing well. I think it's no mystery. We are outside based in France, which I think we can speak in the past was the home of insects or insects for animal feed. Nowadays, it's like a graveyard of startups. Indoor farming, in which we think technology makes a lot of sense, but it's not yet the right timing for its diffusion. And regenerative agriculture farming, so basically the use of carbon credits, where we think consolidation had just started, and we're not even sure that it's an ecosystem that will be there in a couple of years. So maybe not the best of spaces. And as promised, here is the view and why this radar that we've developed and used this year is quite useful, because as you can see, we can have a view of where are the different trends in terms of maturity, but also how adopted they are by different players. And here we can point 2 things: that the space where we are not extremely positive on, at least in terms of startup existence, we see a lot of players getting engaged into it, notably CPG players, so which is something which is quite rare in farming, where notably normally you just have upstream players. As we said, a limited number of players engage on sustainable livestock beyond the talk and the enthusiasm. So it helps to see the difference between the hype and corporate engagement, and it can help you if you are inside a corporation to look at potential opportunities and where on your own radar you should put the different areas. And again, if you have any question on this part, please put it on the Q&A tool, and we'll review it at the end of the session. Megatrend number two around sustainable ingredients. So we talk here at DigitalFoodLab about sustainable ingredients and not alternative proteins. First, because the goal is not to create an alternative, is to create a sustainable ingredient, and sustainable in two senses, climate and health. That's number one. And number two, it's because it's not just proteins in sense alternatives to animal proteins, it's increasingly alternatives to ingredients, fat, sugar, dairy indeed, eggs, etc., etc. So colorants, pigments, flavors, so things that are much more large in terms of scope than just animal proteins. We can divide this trend curve in three. A big area of disruption where there is nothing, that's why there is nothing yet disrupting the market. All the former stars, so things where people were excited a few years ago, which are not doing well, from plant-based, not doing well, cellular agriculture doing terribly right now, biomass fermentation, precision fermentation, so all these areas not doing well, with everybody aligned with a single question: is it scalable profitably? So that's single question that everybody has. And quite interestingly, you have an ecosystem of emerging trends which are just answers to this single question. Plant cell culture, an answer to cultivated meat, a potential scalability problem. Protein discovery, molecular farming. My problem is precision fermentation is not scalable, maybe because bioreactors cost too much. Maybe I can use plants as bioreactors. So you have this ecosystem of new trends, which are solutions to the question of scalability. Again, let's do a quick focus on one of the trends, notably around precision fermentation, maybe the technology that has the potential to be the game changer. With just a recap in a few words, the idea is to use a microorganism like a yeast, a fungi, to modify it genetically to have it produce through fermentation the desired protein which can be a dairy protein, an egg protein, a sugar alternative, or an health or functional ingredient like lactoferrin, HMOs, etc., etc. Interestingly, very positive news, a lot of regulatory approvals, but you can look on the market, where are the products? There are no products, or there are a couple of products here and there. So there is this kind of dichotomy between products are just gotten regulated, but there are no products on the market. So right now, the question is very simple. Can any of these players achieve a price point where it becomes relevant for a large CPG company to use it in formulation? This ecosystem has started with one idea: let's replace bulk proteins like dairy proteins, and now it's evolving towards functional proteins, which with a higher cost, higher price, where they can be relevant. So we do expect this ecosystem to move forward, absolutely not to disappear, but indeed to enter the market, maybe not by the bulk protein, but by the functional protein, so protein providing a technical or health-oriented function. And as we mentioned at the start, we need, and this ecosystem needs, to find applications this year, because otherwise it would be too late for many of the startups to just survive. Similarly, if we look at where the large agri-food companies are engaged, as you can see, they are very much engaged because we just weren't able to put all the logos of different players in just this mapping. They are engaged mostly around three technologies: precision fermentation, but again, it's not all the players, and they're engaged here and there on different applications, so they could be even more engaged. And the most impressive space, because it has grown in just a couple of years, is plant cell culture, where nobody was talking and mentioning this technology, and now you have all the cocoa coffee players which are engaged around this technology. So very interesting to see how things are evolving in that space. And also finally, you can see also and spot different opportunities, areas where there is still space for corporate engagement. Third megatrend, healthy aging. As you can see, I think it's quite clear. It's mostly about re-emerging or emerging trend. So things that we were not mentioning beforehand. So healthy aging ingredients, basically ingredients created with a health goal through the technologies that we've just discussed beforehand. GLP-1 biomimetics, longevity, personalized foods. And talking about biomimetics, that's one of the new spaces that we wanted to highlight this year. So the idea is pretty simple. GLP-1 drugs are pharma drug regulated. Question is, can we create an ingredient which would be food grade that we could put in a food product or a supplement that would have 24, 72 hours of efficiency and with a clinically demonstrable GLP-1 effect. So that's the idea. Quite easy to say on paper and to say orally, much more complicated to have created as a food product, but at least it's emerging. You have 4 or 5 players globally emerging and working seriously on that, at least visibly, so probably much more privately. And so quite interesting to see it. It's very nascent, so they're very emerging with a lack of proof of efficiency or efficacy, but at least one of the spaces to look at, and we are very much convinced that it's key for many agri-food companies to get engaged around this space because there is a need in the industry to provide solutions around GLP-1, either for people not looking to take GLP-1 or for people under the use of the drugs or afterwards. And finally, if we look at the radar on this trend, again, the technologies and trends are outwards, very much in the lab stage with very limited engagement. And quite surprisingly, even on healthy aging ingredients, number of players engage really on that space is very much limited. So that's a space where there could be more engagement there and also on the coaching application services part. A bit more briefly, we'll look at the 2 other megatrends, food automation. So the idea of how the future of food will be more automated, where we will have, as consumers, less actions to do as consumers and users. So pretty simply, many trends that are moving either forward on the right hand or a bit more in the dissolution phase, notably for food service related areas. As you can see, cooking robots not doing well, B2B marketplaces doing terribly bad, etc., etc. Quick focus on for this time of an area which is doing absolutely terribly bad, which is smart stores. With the picture of Amazon Go, which just decided to close all its automated, with a lot of air quotes, stores. Basically, it wasn't working. It was in many instances people in India or in other places which were doing the automation because cameras were not really super working. So the idea of automating stores is basically getting back to zero. It's not working yet for many different reasons. Again, it's not because a first generation is not working that it's the end of the story. The underlying reasons, high cost of workforce, accessibility, need to have stores accessible 24/7, etc., is still there and will get only stronger by the day. So we still believe in these technologies of automation, of smart warehouses, of smart checkout, etc. It was not just the right set of technologies right now, but we are observing players which are moving forward, let's say, in the shadows right now, and trying to come up with new solutions. And fifth and final megatrend around the supply chain. What is interesting right now is, and that's probably to be linked with the decrease in funding, is that we observe many more startups going toward the B2B lane, to around smart factory management, making factory management smarter with the use of AI, notably AI conception, helping CPG companies conceive new food products using their own databases, etc., etc. But the trend that we want to highlight, even if it's not really a trend that should be on the curve by itself because it's already mainstream and it's not leveraging any kind of new technology, it's around D2C brands. Because in food tech, if you ask me what is working well, what is getting attention, what is getting exits, which is at the end of the day, what a startup is here for, it's D2C brands. In past year, here we put the example of Poppy, acquired for 2 billion. There are so many brands which are doing extremely well, which are basically benefiting from the consumer lack of trust towards large agri-food companies, etc., and which are growing quite fast. So we very much believe that it's a space which is exciting, with brand reinventing many of the different segments of the retail store and categories. And on that topic, if you're interested on that, we have just published, and it's on our website, an insight on D2C emerging brands, and basically trying to explain why these brands are thriving, but why also so many acquisitions and M&A fail at the end of the day, trying to come back with our framework around M&A. So if that's a topic that you're interested in too, you should have a look at it, and maybe that could be something that we should discuss. So also in a few words, if you're looking at what's happening in terms of innovation, if you're looking and wondering what you should put in your own radar, that's definitely also something that you should call us for. What we often do with clients is step one, define what's interesting to what is your trend curve, what is that you should consider, then how relevant are these different trends for you based on your own capabilities, vision, and strategy. And so the idea is to, in this first step, to define your innovation radar, and then to do deep dives on the most relevant areas to identify, okay, here are the 2-3 areas that are core for us. How should we leverage them? Should we invest, acquire, partner, do it ourselves? We have the right partners, and then just do it with the right people on your side. And finally, in a few minutes, what I would like to provide is an idea about what's our expectations for 2026 and potentially beyond. So in a few words, we believe that this year will be decisive. It will be a make or break year, notably for ingredients. After years of pushbacks, after years where so many things have been announced, we need to see the partnerships and the startup deliver on results. So we have 3 ingredients that we follow, where we are pretty sure that we'll see things, and we are already seeing products entering the market. Cocoa alternatives, in this case through cellular agriculture, sugar alternatives created through precision fermentation, and alternative proteins through biomass fermentation. That would be our trio of products where we think we need to see products reaching the market and to provide some consumer data, and then having large agricultural companies decide or not to move forward on a larger scale. So I think what's important is for any food company is to decide which are the ingredients where you want to act. You can't focus on all the types of innovation. As we said, you need to be a bit more strategic, and that's often the discussion that we have with clients. And among all the different ecosystem, verify that you are aligned with the right economic assumptions and not ideas that are unrealistic, which can often be the case with kind of innovations. Second is around GLP-1. GLP-1 is big. It's already a big topic. It's getting bigger in the US, but 2026 will be the year where it will become mainstream in many areas. Patents are going down in many countries, Canada, China, India. So it will become mainstream in many areas of the world. And there is this new trends of GLP-1 companions, biomimetics that we mentioned, and the surrounding space of healthy aging and new ingredients. Beyond products, which are very exciting, there is the idea of services. We are also convinced that food companies need to think about which kind of services they want to develop for their clients around health in the future. Finally, for third area, funding will probably remain flat. We don't expect more, any kind of increase or significant increase in funding. So in a word, and quite related to my previous topic, the ability to scale profitably will become the main metric. Startup will and are already starting to communicate more and more on we are able to scale at this and that price. We are able to provide this ingredient at that price, and just expect that to become the norm in the years to come. So, in terms of conclusion, first, rationalization. And it was a theme of the past years. It will be still the theme of the years ahead. We need an innovation ecosystem a bit more rational. It's still an extremely active innovation ecosystem. So you can't move back out of innovation and say, okay, we can just stop innovating. No, innovation is moving forward and faster. Corporate engagement is a key to move forward for commercialization. And that was our theme, look for concrete results in 2026. So that was, in a nutshell, pretty much it. I don't know if you have any questions, but you can ask them, as I said, in the Q&A tool. We'll be happy to answer it. And if you are also interested for more insight, you have our newsletter, DigitalFoodLab, sent every week, the reports on investments, and also you can go on our website. We have all the insights that we've created over the past 8 years now. So I would say a great source of inspiration and of insights about what's basically waiting for us in the years ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Matthieu. Thank you for your presentation. Well, great. We have, of course, a lot of questions. Maybe we can start with differences between the main regions in the world. Are there some differences in terms of trends between the US, Europe, Asia? Are they similar, or are they going into opposite directions?
That's a very good question, and one which I find always slightly complicated to answer. So because it has gotten more complex over the years, I'd say. If we look, there are areas where the trends can basically be deployed in terms of geographies, but it's not necessarily the place where they are born. If we look, for example, the most simple, which would be alternative proteins, nowadays, if you look at precision fermentation, more than half of the exciting startups are based in Europe, but deployment will be in the US, Singapore, just let's say for fun, just to have a place to launch, and China. So indeed, trends, it's not a question of are they more advanced, it's where they will be able to commercially deploy. So, but it really depends on what do we mean by advanced, because technologically doesn't mean where they will be able to become commercialized.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's clear. Question about healthy aging. Of course, the healthy aging mega trend. I have several people surprised about the limited engagement of the industry on healthy aging.
Mm.
On the radar you share, we have less companies mentioned than in AgTech, for example. So how do you explain that? And also, could health insurance companies could they play a role in the future or maybe right now in this sector?
Yep. First, if we talk about food companies, I think for them, in many cases, it's complicated the relationship with health, because when we talk about healthy products, we are talking about the idea of creating products that will be differentiated, more expensive. And nowadays, the main concern of consumers and then of food companies is volume, is about volumes and price. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is, around health, it's a bit more reactive than the other way. So there is this new trend on GLP-1, and most food companies are reacting to it with protein-enriched, collagen-enriched products, but not disruptive innovation. That's number two. And number three, all the technologies that are pointed to are forward-looking. So we are talking about ingredients that basically are not there. We are not sure that they will even work technically. So that's also why it's not always okay, the role or the model of a food company to engage with this kind of ingredients, because they are around this space, everybody, yeah, is not really feeling that it is at its own place, because it looks like more biotech and not like pharma, and not really like the normal relationship of food with an innovative ingredient. So I think players need to find their new situation, new way of working around the healthy aging space. So we need to be reminded that the GLP-1 trend is quite young, and for food companies, it will take time, even more as they are still in the inflation post-COVID phase, where and now tariff phase, complicated challenges where they are trying to navigate all of that. And for the question about health insurance, indeed, many food companies are not working at the food coaching space, but many health insurance companies are already working around that. So they are already engaged into that space. So indeed, at the end of the day, the question is there an opportunity on food coaching to be the supplier of information to a consumer about what he should buy and eat? Their health companies, health insurance companies, and tech companies are already engaged, not food companies.
Okay, thank you. And to stay in the same area about GLP-1, so you said it's a young trend. Today, is the food industry reacting strategically about it, or do you think it's just a tactical move to defend the volumes?
Uh, it's a bit more tactical, indeed. And indeed, it's even more to it's in many cases, as I said, tactical positioning, because okay, let's be there with anything that we can have. We would be among the first, even if our product is not amazing, even if it's just repackaging an existing product. So I think everybody is navigating like, yeah, it's an open ocean. Nobody knows where it's going. There are still players with doubts about the future of GLP-1. We are not among them, but still there are people that are adopting about the future of GLP-1. So I think for food companies, it's extremely complicated to navigate, because it's a space where the discussion is about reducing volume. That's something that is very, very uncomfortable.
Mm. Mhm. Thank you. A word about AI. Um, do you think that some areas or some food sectors in general, I mean industrial sectors, are more likely to adopt AI technologies than others? Maybe if you refer to trends where AI is the most useful and efficient also.
Uh, Again, very, very good question. I think in all the trends that we mentioned, there are applications of AI that are more obvious than in some areas than others. But what we don't see, with very limited exception, is areas where people are redoing AI. So, contrary to what many startups are saying in food tech, nobody is really doing AI. So they are using and leveraging existing models to be more productive or do stuff. Maybe in protein discovery, we could say that they are doing AI, but that's maybe the exception. So, and robotics, maybe, but
Mm.
we could have a discussion around that. So I think it's more a question of applications and not that much. I don't see areas which could benefit much more than others. I think all areas can benefit, but it's not obvious how and when.
Mm. Yeah, indeed. Thank you. Um, Question about a bit tricky, but after the peak of investment in 2021 and 2022, um, investors bet on some growth expectations, more some figures that we can more apply to software than biotech. And so today, if we look at sustainable ingredients and technologies such as precision fermentation, cereal agriculture, etc., that you mentioned, what are the main barriers? Are there more technological, industrial, so we talk here about scalability, or purely economic, and I mean cost compared to classic protein or meat.
Uh,
And what can we expect if in the following years for this techno and these barriers?
um, that's I think the answer is pretty much in question, at least for the first part. Three barriers, different technologies, so different technologies, different applications. Some are still at the technology level, so we don't know how to do it. Some are at the industrial barrier, so we don't know how to do it at scale. And some are at the economic level, which is often the food problem, which is we know how to do it. We don't need to do it at scale, like a sweetener or sugar alternative, because a small volume can be enough and can be produced at small scale and used industrially. But nowadays, it's not viable economically and not by a wide margin. It's just not really viable. And the reason to switch is not yet there. So the question is just, is there any large corporation ready to make the switch or to do an experimentation? And it's not a surprise, the food industry can be very conservative and can be also waiting for somebody to take the lead and then everybody follows. So we are in this situation, and that's why so many players are switching away from food and trying to look at cosmetics or other industries where there is a bit more an appetite around innovation. So what we are waiting is about players taking a bit more risks.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking at time, so it will be the last question for today. Um, so after this investment peak I mentioned, today so startups are facing difficulty to raise money and valuation are slashed. So at current valuation levels, those valuations, are they finally attractive enough for strategic M&A in food tech? Uh, Even for young or at least not commercialized startups. If we talk about startup working on the on technologies we just mentioned, uh, do you think there are M&A opportunity here? And also, if you are a food company and want to act on this trend and win, what do you need to do internally?
Yeah. I'd say if we're talking about emerging technologies, considering M&A may not be a good idea.
Mm.
That will be number one. It's not a question of valuation. If the valuation is low and nobody wants to invest, and you believe in the technology, invest in the startup yourself. Maybe it could be relevant, but owning the tech would be a good way to destroy the value of the startup because you don't know where it will land. Will it be useful to you at the end of the day, etc. So M&A is interesting for something that you can scale, I'd say. So if it's not at scale stage, I wouldn't go to the M&A road. That would be number one. Second, valuations, they have become much more reasonable. But when we talk about long-term technologies, biotech, etc., valuation are always unreasonable, even when they are low, because we don't know what the future will be. So it's just a question and a market of offer and demand. So I
Sure.
I never think that valuation are either too low, too high. It's a question about, do we believe in a reasonable set of hypotheses, of economic hypotheses. And then what should a company do internally? If they ask themselves the question, they should call us. That would be number one. And then define what you want to look at, because I see so many companies that look at everything and do nothing. So define what you look at, then define your priorities, where you want to make a difference. Because even, and there are some people of Nestle can't do and prioritize everything. You need to say, okay, we want to make a difference there, and we want to be fast follower here, and on these other categories we'll use what's on the market. That's based on your capabilities. You are very good, you have technology, you have something, you have a raw material, a byproduct to use, and just be consistent with innovation, because innovation is about things that move fast, but it doesn't need itself in terms of strategy to be changed every couple of years. So if you have these 3 points, I think you're good.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I think so. So thank you for your answer, and thank you for your presentation and answer to question, Matthieu. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. I remind you that you can download the full report for free on our website if it's not already done. You can also subscribe to our newsletter to have food tech insights every week in your inbox. And well, see you soon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have
Bye.
a good day. Bye, everyone.